Hello. Got up to this. The guest house lobby was wrapped in silence. Strings of tension binding Kraus, Natsuki, and Eva had already loosened, and they were completely worn out, with their minds beginning to waver. Every once in a while, they would stand up and walk around pointlessly, as though fighting their drowsiness.
大丈夫ですか、エヴァさん。やはり無理をせず、休んでいてください。
大丈夫だって言ってるわ。もう大人は私たち3人しかいないのよ。休んでる暇なんかないわ。石にかじりついてでも、ここを死守するわよ。
She spoke bravely, but she couldn't hide her rough breathing. It seemed that the fever, which had been calmed with her medicine for a short time, had returned. It was very obvious that Eva's health was not good.
無理はするな。せめて目を閉じていたまえ。もし起こさねばならぬ時は、必ず起こしてやるから。
だから平気だって言ってるわ。放っておいて。
It seems he was already unwilling to budge. Kraus and Natsuki realized that even if they talked to her any more when she was like this, it wouldn't reach her ears. So without saying anything more, they decided to let her be. Eva right now, even having an argument like that would be burdensome. It would probably be better for her body if she just sat there with her mouth closed. In truth, Eva was just a step away from being beaten down by drownies. Perhaps she shot back at them with a temper because she was trying to rouse herself and throw off her sleepiness. The clock would be pointing to 6 o'clock in the afternoon very soon. She had several snacks to distract herself from her drowsiness. She didn't feel hungry, but now her lack of sleep made it feel like it was 6 o'clock in the morning, not the afternoon. Even supposing that the boat came at precisely 9 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, they still had more than 12 full hours to go. It was an overwhelmingly long stretch of time. Long, painful, hot. Even the sound of the clock torments my body now. In times like this, when that person puts his hand on my forehead, my fever fades at once. But that person no longer exists. As Eva's mind grew foggy, she was once again gripped by a deep sadness. She had already cried herself dry. Even so, the sadness of losing her beloved husband had not been exhausted.
私は間違っていたんだわ。
どうして？
The new witch and Eva were fundamentally the same being. If Eva talked to her, she would always respond.
私は後宮家の当主の座さえ得られれば、それで満足のはずだった。それが、あの黄金の山を見た途端に欲が増えたの。あの黄金の山を独り占めしたい気持ちに駆られた。
それは恥じることでも何でもないわ。だって、後宮家の当主として当然の権利じゃない。他の誰にも黄金の一かけらだって譲るものかってのよ。
私がその誘惑にとらわれたから、あなたが生まれてしまったんだわ。あなたは、私の少女時代の心であると同時に、自分勝手でしかない、私のよこしまな心でもあった。そのあなたが、あの黄金の山によって芽生えた私の愚かな欲望のせいで、私の胸という卵の殻を破り、この世に生まれ出てしまった。あなたを産んだのは私の責任。
なら、私が殺したローザとマリアも、そしてルドルフとキリエと秀吉もあなたの責任ってことになるわ。
どうしてうちの人まで殺したのよ。どうして
秀吉を殺す気はなかったわ。だってうるさくてしつこかったんだもの。その意味では私たちの、いえ、あなたの責任ね。あんなのを旦那に選んだあなたの責任だわ。
あなたみたいな子供にあの人の良さはわからないわよ。あなた。
何よ。私たちは魔法で夢を叶えたのよ。碑文の謎を解いたわ。そして黄金を見つけ、当主の指輪を手にしたわ。すべての夢を叶えきったわ。それがなんで不満なの？
それだけが全ての夢なんかじゃないわ。あの人と素敵な人生を歩んで、ジョージに素晴らしい人生を託す。妻として、母として。私にはまだ叶えなければならない夢がたくさんあるのよ。それなのに
それはあなたが大人になってから勝手に増やした夢だわ。私たちの夢じゃない。
だからあなたは子供なのよ。自分さえ良ければいいの？そうよ。全て私が悪いのよ。あの時ローザの言うことにどうして私は反抗したの？どうして兄弟みんなに黄金を見つけたと発表できなかったの？全て私が醜いから。黄金を独り占めしたくて芽生えさせたよこしまな心があなたを孵化させてしまった。
ひどい嫌われようだわ。私たちは二人で後ろ宮エヴァなのに。
いいえ、もう違うわ。そしてそれはあなたが言ったのよ。私は後ろ宮エヴァ、そしてあなたは黄金の魔女ベアトリーチェよ。だからもう消えて。魔女なんておとぎ話の中にしか存在できない妄想よ、幻想よ。あなたなんか消えてしまえ。二度と私の前に現れないで。
ああ、そう。わかったわ。あなたの前から消えてあげるわ。そして私はもう後ろ宮エヴァじゃない。これからは黄金の魔女ベアトリーチェよ。もう好き勝手に遊んでやるんだから。あんたなんて知らないわ。へそでも噛んで勝手に死んじゃえば。
After having a very childlike tantrum, the witch who had once been another Eva vanished. Only Eva was left behind in the darkness, and she questioned
私
herself.
なの。私が彼らを殺したの。あの人を殺してしまったの。私が殺してしまったの。
She could no longer answer that question herself. Seeing that, half asleep, she had gotten some saliva caught in her windpipe just as she was dozing off. Eva suddenly started coughing.
大丈夫かエヴァ。夏日、水を頼む。
はい。大丈夫だってば。ちょっとむせちゃっただけなんだから。
Eva pushed away Natsui's hand as she tried to rub her back, and unsteadily rose to her feet.
顔洗ってくるわ。ごめんなさいね、寝ちゃってたわ。戻ってきたらまたコーヒーを入れるわね。特に濃い、明日の朝まで眠気が来なくなるようなやつを。
頼む。ゴーダの入れるコーヒーよりお前が入れるコーヒーの方が私の好みに合うからな。
お世辞でも嬉しいわ。すぐ戻るわ。
Eva exited the lobby, heading for the bathroom. Crossing Natsui watched over her girl back.
あなたもあれだけ犬猿の中だったエヴァさんに気を使うこともあるのですね。
本来兄とはこういうものではないのかね。
ええ、それで正しいと思います。
エヴァに限らん。ルドルフにもローザにも。私がした兄らしいことといえば それを王兵に語り、彼らをいじめただけだ。父のようになりたくて私なりに必死だった。だがいつもそれは及ばず、そのはけ口を彼らに向けてしまった。しかしそれは言い訳にならん。エヴァにもまだ傷が癒えぬほどに深い心の傷を負わせてしまっただろう。悔いているが、今さらそれを詫びたところでその傷が癒えるわけもない。
あなたがその気持ちを今だけでなく持ち続けることで、その気持ちはきっと他の兄弟たちにも伝わりますよ。
今となっては他の兄弟もエヴァを残すのみだがね。
もしあなたとあなたのご兄弟が生まれた家がもっともっと普通な楽しい兄弟の関係であったでしょうに。
それを言ってはならん。エヴァは生涯私を憎み続けるだろう。そしてその資格がある。私はそれを甘んじて受け止めるつもりだ。
あなた、
エヴァ、すまん。もちろん許さなくていい。
もちろん許さないわ。何を今さら。悪いと思ったなら今すぐへそでも噛んで死んじゃえば。やっちゃえシエスタ姉妹。45射撃許可治療。射撃曲線再確認。飛行誤差修正。410データリンク。410データ受領。射撃許可確認。にひひひひ射撃。
Together, sisters released the magical bowstring they had readied. Beautiful tail trailed behind the gold arrow, and it drew a lovely curve as it flew. It was just like a gold snake. Skillfully avoided a grove of trees and flew toward the front door of the guest house. Then it flew into the keyhole of the door and snuck into the guest house without any problem at all. The gold snake raced down the hall smoothly, yet as fast as an arrow. Right before it was the door to the lobby. When it flew into the keyhole, Kraus and Natsui were already. For an instant, Kraus thought he saw a gold-colored sparkle in the keyhole on the door. However, at the same time as he strained his eyes to see what it was, the sparkle bent like a whip and attacked, wrapping itself around Kraus's neck. Just looking at it, the gold snake seemed very supple. However, it was as though a wire had tightened around Kraus's neck. While that snake choked Kraus, it extended even more and also tightened around Natsu's neck. Without even a chance to scream, their eyes bulged as they went into convulsions and then collapsed.
45命中および死亡確認。牽引曲線形成補正点修正。410データリンク。410データ受領。死体牽引開始。2匹も釣れたに2匹。
The gold snake began to drag Kraus and Natsui's bodies back. It slipped through the door to the corridor, dragging the bodies, gradually increasing, and rapidly pulled them outside the guest house. So the lobby was silent, as though nothing had happened. As though Kraus and Natsui had not been there since the beginning. Only the sound of the wind and the rain remained, as if they were playing dumb and pretending to be the only ones there.
ごめんなさい。もう大丈夫よ。今コーヒーを入れるわね。
Eva returned from the bathroom, but no one was in the lobby. Even though they had supposedly been in that sofa until the moment she had chosen to go into the bathroom, they were gone, as if they'd been an illusion from the very beginning.
不用心ね。二人揃ってどこに行っちゃったの？
Eva put her hand on the sofa as though acting out a scene from a detective novel. She felt a warmth that meant they'd been sitting there until a short while ago. Maybe they went to do the rounds or something. For the time being, Eva sat down and waited for their return. Beato and George could be seen in the parlor of the mansion. George was kneeling near Shannon's body as though praying. His face was serious, and there was even sweat on his forehead. However, Beato was the same. Now that she had handed her name over, most of her previous power had been lost. Of course, she still had more than enough power to be called a witch, but compared to the past, it was a very faint thing.
いいぞ。声をかけるな。心の声で呼べよ。そなたの強き思いだけが、シャノンの失われた魂、わらわの魔法を届かせる。
George kept praying earnestly and silently. He kept frantically yelling inside his heart, trying to call back the soul of the person he loved. He strongly envisioned his soul leaving his body and searching for her as she wandered through the land of the dead. Beato turned that strong force into magical power that supplemented her own magic. This was magic that, in the past, she could have performed easily without anyone's help. Now, if she didn't rely on someone's assistance, she wouldn't be able to finish the chant, much less succeed.
数百年近くの魔法と反言とはこんなにも辛い魔法であったか。
Beato was wearing an even more strained expression than George. It had slipped her mind, but originally, the magic to revive a life was the ultimate hidden art. The abnormal thing was her previous magical power, which could be used over and over with a snap of her fingers. So, the heavy burden on her body and mind was, fundamentally speaking, extremely natural.
しかし、こやつめの力、魔法を知らぬというのはかなりのもの。なるほど。さすがは金蔵の孫といったところか。
Strong energy pouring from George was large enough to act as magical power. First, Beato thought it must be the blood of Kinzo, sorcerer. However, that probably wasn't. She had a feeling that Beato had already told her what it was. It had been born from the power of George's sadness at the death of the person he loved, and from the way he had tried his hardest throughout his life. From the warm time spent together with Shannon, to the size of the dream they swore to protect in the future. Is it really possible for humans to take life so seriously, even though they only have a single one? It was only natural. To her, a life didn't mean anything more than the difference between the top and bottom of a bell piece. If the black represented death, she thought all you had to do was flip it over and flip it over again and make it white. However, it was just like that broken vase. Humans in a world without magic, where they cannot return things to their original form, it is very, very natural for them to bet their life and soul.
生死すら自在にする無限の魔女。死の山さえ越えられぬ有限の人間が劣ることもあるというか。
This time, the witch acknowledged it. He was able to hold a magical power that could never reside in witches who didn't understand the value of life. Why does this thing called the Endless Magic exist? Even though I called myself the Endless Witch, did I forget what the Endless Magic means for 1,000 years? He looked at George's expression again. The surging earnestness was like a lightning bolt. Right now, even if George's body had been burned or smashed by a waterfall, he would probably be continuing to pray for his beloved without minding it, without noticing it. For the first time, she showed respect for that power. So in that instant, all magical resistance was lost, and the enormous power of George's feelings turned into magical energy in its complete form. The vase was very beautiful, rich with history and value. Even as young as I was, it still forced me to take a deep breath when I witnessed its beauty, but that just made me want to touch it. But the vase easily fell and smashed like a bubble that had popped. It felt as though the time it possessed a form had been just an illusion. Lives are just that fragile, just that easily lost. I realized that my foolish curiosity and wanted to do something that couldn't be undone. No matter how much I regretted it, no matter how much I apologized, the smashed vase wouldn't return back to its original. Vase or vase is how I can pronounce it. A lost life will not return, no matter what happens. I was frightened that, even though my actions had been thoughtless and careless, I had stolen away a life that could never be revived again. Then I pitied that lost life and cried. I was frightened myself, the one responsible for its loss, and cried even more. I'm sure grandfather will also cry at the loss of his precious ones. I'm sure that all the people who love grandfather and see him like that will cry. The loss of a single life, the whole world can be filled with so much sadness. I cried even more at how terrible that was. Beatrice appeared, spoke.
ならばお嬢様、この壺を魔法でよみがえらせましょう。それで皆が幸せになれるなら、壺も魔法も精霊たちも喜んでそのために力を貸し、元の姿を取り戻すでしょう。さあさあお嬢様、目を閉じて私と一緒にお歌を歌いましょう。さあさあ、目を閉じてごらんなさい。そして思い出してごらんなさい。あなたがどんな姿をしていたのか。それはきっととてもとても美しい姿。どうか私にあの姿をもう一度見せておくれ。
Those words of power knocked forcefully on the door to the land of the dead. Magic of her old self had performed that same forceful knock. However, doing it that way was horribly violent, and earned the displeasure of the peacefully sleeping dead. But this time was different. It was very forceful, and yet gentle and loving. The dead near the door opened their eyes, and called out to the others that there was a voice calling for someone to come back. The sadness of that voice calling from the outside touched the hearts of the dead, and, trying to respond as quickly as possible, they searched for Shannon's lost soul. And then, they found it. They found the casket in which Shannon was peacefully sleeping. It truly was Shannon's soul, sleeping in the land of the dead. Inside the casket that was covered with rose flowers frozen with frost, he was sleeping in peace. The dead silently lifted that casket up. While at a glance, it looked like a funeral march, it had the complete opposite meaning. It was solemn, but filled with joy. The long-forgotten dead were made to remember that they were loved after their deaths, and they were all given a warm sense of peace. Then, as though guided by a warm light from the heavens, Shannon's body floated up out of the casket. The dead watched her go. They squinted at that warm light, offering their respect to this unknown member of the living, who had not lost his love for a person even after their death. Shannon's body was enveloped in the light from the heavens and began to disappear. In the jet-black darkness of the land of the dead, a faint flickering of gold butterflies could be seen. It reminded them of the gentle stars in the night sky, which they had long forgotten. George remembered being told that he must not say anything, and he hurriedly covered his mouth. However, it felt like his heart was trying to jump into his throat, because he had seen Shannon's eyelids shake slightly. Then, those eyelids slowly opened. Shannon's eyes were there, but they were still wrapped in the fog of the land of the dead. However, the human world's warmth, no, her lover's warmth, which had called back her soul, slowly dissolved that fog, and her eyes gradually regained their sparkle. Then, her eyes moved and recognized George.
George-san.
As her lips shook weakly, Shannon definitely said that. The words were very faint, so much so that they normally wouldn't have reached his ears. However, George clearly heard them. He heard the person he cared for, his fiancée, the one he loved most and who should have been dead, call his name once again.
Shannon, 僕がわかるかい？
ジョージさん、これは夢なの？
いや、これは夢じゃないよ。だからほら、つねっても覚めないよ。
As George said that, he softly pinched Shannon's cheek. It was how George had always responded in the past, when Shannon had been surprised by something and had asked if she could scream. When Shannon felt the warm touch of George's finger on her cheek, and when George realized that the warmth of the living had already returned to his beloved person's cheek, they both cried. What words should a pair of lovers separated by death celebrate with when they are reunited? The words of the human world are not enough. In short, they had no need of the words of this world. George simply hugged Shannon, who was sitting up, without talking. Shannon's strength was still feeble, and putting her arms around George's back took all she had, so George hugged her tightly to make up for that. To stop each other from going once more to a place the other's hand couldn't reach, they hugged each other so tightly, and yet so gently, that Shannon's fingers curled around George's back. On her ring finger, the engagement ring George had given her definitely shone. That strong glint certainly wasn't just the sparkle of diamond. There definitely was a magical power that only the two lovers could possibly feel. It was because that strong light existed that they had been able to find her casket in the land of the dead. Beato understood. That ring. No. The feelings of the pair embodied in that ring were a miracle made real. In that moment, George definitely used magic. Beato had done nothing more than help him along. That magic had a power that could only reside in those who knew of the importance of life, who knew what it meant to try with all one's might. It was the power of a miracle, one that the endless witch couldn't possibly know. A miracle that only the power of the finite could give rise to. By now, she had no choice but to accept it. She had to accept that true magical power, exists in the place furthest away from she who called herself a great witch.
ベアトリーチェ様。
彼女が君を生き返らせてくれたんだ。ありがとう、ベアトリーチェ。
いや、わらわは何もできなかった。シャノンをよみがえらせたのは、そなたの魔力、そなたの魔法、奇跡を成し遂げる後ろ宮の地。確かに見届けさせてもらったぞ。
ジョージさんが私を。
うん。わらわなど足元にも及ばぬほどの凄まじき魔力であったぞ。わらわなどはまだまだ見習いの域を出ぬか。今こそ身の程を知ろうぞ。
Beato staggered backwards. Her physical strength was clearly exhausted. She had humbly said that George's power alone had revived Shannon. Beato had also used all of her magical and physical strength. And she reflected upon how difficult it was to revive a single life, something she'd been able to play around with however she wanted to in the past. The couple kept on embracing each other tightly. By doing that, those feelings that couldn't be communicated with a billion words were shared.
ありがとう、ベアトリーチェ。君は僕たちの恩人だ。
ありがとうございます、ベアトリーチェ様。再びジョージ様に会わせてくださったこのご恩を決して忘れません。
よせよせ。愛し合う二人に感謝されては外道の極みと恐れられたわらわにはくすぐわらわのことは気にするな。存分に再会を祝い合え。
Beato, who was leaning with her back against the wall, slid down the wall and sat. How many centuries had it been since she last grew this tired from using magic? I probably haven't been this tired since the time I first succeeded in magic. Didn't teacher praise me that time? Oh, but didn't I kill that same teacher who praised me? Don't be so naive, Beatrice. Isn't that what killing means?
ようやく魔法の使い方を思い出したようですね。
頭ん中酸欠でカラッカラで思い出すもヘチマもねえぜ。それよりあんた殺したじゃねえかよ。 笑われるんじゃね
あなたが未だに私を生かしていますね。だからこうして現れられます。もっともあなたの頭を撫でに来たわけでもありませんが。
えよ。無様なわらわをわざわざ嘲笑いに来たかよ。それに隠居までした魔女が今さら頭なんか撫でられちゃ。
そうですね。一人前どころか現役を退いたと豪語するあなたなのに、今頃になって魔法の使い方を覚えたなど恥ずかしくて誰にも言えませんね。
だなあ。内緒にしてくれよ、お師匠様。
Beato gazed at the couple hugging each other with a sense of pleasant despondence.
愛か。勝てねえな。
45データ治療、射撃準備完了。弾種選定装填。410射撃2匹。
The gold snake arrow fired by the Chiester weaved its way through the bushes in the rose garden, weaved its way through the hedges, and climbed the stone steps towards the mansion's entrance, aiming for the keyhole. They weaved through the corridors and flew into the keyhole on the door to the parlor. It happened in an instant. One could hardly blame Beato, who was completely worn out, not noticing it beforehand. Right before Beato's eyes, the gold snake flew in through the keyhole, surrounded the two lovers, pierced the two hearts in a blink of an eye. Furthermore, the gold snake faithfully pierced a hole through Shannon's chest once more. The two hearts were pierced by that gold snake. No, by that gold sewing thread of the new brutal witch's furniture. And it had happened in an instant, mocking the amount of effort it had taken to revive Shannon. Before Beato's shocked eyes, the two fell over and landed on the floor.
ジョージ、シャノン。
ありがとう、ベアトリーチェ。わずかの間でも会わせてくれてありがとう。
He spent his last breath thanking Beato and died alongside the one he loved. The gold snake, which still soothed the two in place, felt like a large cyclone revolving around the inside of the parlor, searching for further prey in that room. Then the tip of the snake met Beato's gaze. In that instant, Beato was prepared to die. At that moment, Virgilia stood in front of her, the fingers of both her hands drawing a seal. Instantly, gold-colored gold leaf buried the inside of the parlor. It was like a blizzard of gold.
ベアト、今のうちに逃げて。シエスタの黄金球からは誰も逃れられない。
410標的疾患。200魔法機回し。45了解。索敵変更、対人画像追尾方式。標的再補足。410へデータリンク。410データ受領。すっとろいに先代様。来て来て来て。着弾。
Prey targeted by the Chiester sisters' golden bow did not escape. It could not be blocked. No magical barrier could even dream of blocking it without being multi-layered. The gap opened. During that instant of confusion caused by Virgilia's deception magic was Beato's only chance to escape, and it was the only chance to make the sisters confuse Virgilia. As Virgilia spread her arms wide, blocking the way to evolve a disciple, the gold snake pierced straight through her heart. After sneaking in through the keyhole, the snake shot through George, Shannon, and then Virgilia in an instant, completely failing to notice Beato as she used that instant to escape. As soon as Virgilia saw that Beato had gotten away, she died. Strength left her body, and like gold dust drifting into the wind, her form was erased. It completely erased all traces of her magical power, became gold butterflies, and passed through the wall, escaping to the wind and rain outside. Beato felt regret from the bottom of her heart. Hey, Beatrice, remember that time when you made Kanan fight all 7 sisters? But because she had been attacked by the new witch? Probably not. Of course, she hated losing her teacher. And even more importantly, Beato was enraged at the barbarians and had abortively stolen away the reunion between the 2 lovers. Beato had poured out almost all of her magic power to reunite them. Even though the result had been a miracle, the time it took to steal that away had been so ridiculously short. Beato trembled at the barbarous cruelty that had brought about such an abrupt end. Besides, this was the true form of the act she herself had committed up until that point. So just as strongly as Beato hated the new witch, she also looked at her previous self with disgust. But now, she had to escape. If she was targeted next, she would probably lose her life. Think that a chess player had descended, thinking they were like a god, only to be attacked by the pieces. Yikes.
45着弾確認標的資産間違いなく先代様を撃破しました。また私たちの撃墜気象が増えちまうね。にひ愛し合う2人引き裂いて1度合わせて2度もう一度引き裂いて3度楽しめるそのついでにあのクソうるさいババアまでさよならできて最高にご機嫌よ。ラノウェイ文句ないわよね。
ございません、ベアトリーチェ様。
あいつは魔女の碑文の儀式を妨害したのよ。第一の番の生贄を勝手に蘇らせて私の儀式を妨害したわ。文句言われる筋合いなんかなんにもないわよ。しかしずるいなあ。あいつは死体を残さないのね。あのババアも思いっきり何度も無限にいじめ殺して遊んでやろうと思ったのに。
ジョージが来てないわよ。いつ降りたのよ。
いつってあれは何時くらいだったっけ。
確か4時か5時くらいだったかな。最低でも1時間以上は前だよ。
俺たち眠くなってその後は多分居眠りしてたし。でも多分ジェシカの言う通りだと思うぜ。1時間か2時間くらい前だった。
私もそのくらいの頃だと記憶しています。コーヒーのおかわりはいるかと聞かれましたからな。
Something hard to believe had happened. Apparently, Aunt Eva had left for a second to wash her hands before Kraus and Aunt Natsu had disappeared. There's no way they went hiding somewhere. Of course, the doors and windows had all been rigorously checked. All were locked from the inside. Not one of them was broken. That wasn't just true for the first floor. The second floor was the same. Again, all the doors and windows had locks built in a way that made it impossible to lock them from the outside. In other words, there was no way that Uncle Kraus and Aunt Natsu had gone outside. Yet, they couldn't be found. Furthermore, they weren't the only ones who had disappeared, so had Virgilia of all people. Virgilia had left saying he was going to get more coffee, and had gone downstairs more than an hour earlier. We'd assumed that he was having a conversation with Aunt Eva and the rest. But Aunt Eva, who had been in the lobby the whole time, said that no one had come down. So all the doors and windows were locked from the inside. It was unthinkable that they had gone outside. However, 3 humans had evaporated from this barricaded guest house, which had become a perfect closed room. In a situation like this, we couldn't imagine that this was because they were playing hide and seek and trying to scare us with a prank. It was probably reasonable to assume that they'd been caught up in this crime. When Aunt Eva had learned that her only son was missing, she had gone half insane, running from room to room and yelling his name. And Jessica, who had suddenly lost both of her parents, had chased after her. Cries of George, George, and Mom, Dad had continued to echo through the guest house for some time. I think George said something about wanting to see Shannon's dead face. It would be reasonable to assume that he snuck out of the guest house and went to the mansion. But I didn't have a clue about Uncle Krause and Aunt Nancy. Did they see him leave and then go to the mansion to search for him? Without even telling Aunt Eva? At this rate, it's only a matter of time before we start planning to leave the guest house to go search for them. When that time comes, all agree. We thought staying holed up in the guest house would be safe, which is why our big, happy group of 12 people locked themselves up here this morning. And yet, now there's only 4 of us left. That means staying here is no guarantee of safety. However, there's one thing we can't afford to forget. All the doors and windows were locked from the inside. This is a closed room. How did they manage to vanish from this place? We searched around thoroughly. However, we couldn't find any traces of someone hiding. The 3 of them had almost certainly been taken outside the guest house.
どうやってでしょう。まさか隠し扉とかがあるとか。
隠し扉？
扉も窓も外から閉めることは構造上不可能です。釣り糸の類を使ってもこの構造では無理でしょうな。となれば扉や窓以外から出たと考えるのが妥当でしょう。
確かにそういう論法にもなるだろうよ。隠し扉が存在しないなんて断言は誰にもできない。しかしそういう発想に飛躍する前に俺はもっとシンプルな可能性も疑ってる。
と申しますと？
For some time, Beato had been opening windows, opening shutters, and checking outside, repeating this for each window.
この窓は静かだな。なるほど。この窓は他と違って建物の構造上風が吹き込まないわけか。
そのようですな。こんなにも外は風雨なのに雨も風も入ってこないとは不思議な気持ちです。
南條先生、今窓を開けた時音を感じたかい？
いえ、気にはなりませんでしたな。よく油が効いていると思います。
つまり誰も見ていない廊下の窓からひょろっと抜け出すことは可能なわけだ。しかもこの窓なら風も吹き込まないから風圧でカーテンや扉が音を立てることもない。静かなもんさ。
Beato leaned forward and looked at the ground below. He was searching for some sign that George had jumped down. But at a glance, he didn't see any mark like that on the grass in the middle of the pouring rain.
こういう窓が1階にもあるのかもしれない。誰にも気づかれずに表へ出ることは可能だぜ。
しかし扉はおろか窓は全て施錠されて鎧戸まで閉まっていましたぞ。出ることは可能でも閉めることは不可能だ。
閉められるぜ。こうやってカチャンとな。
Beato closed the window and locked it, as though this was perfectly obvious.
まさかバトラさんが？
最後に中の人間が鍵を閉めればこんな密室は朝飯前だ。
しかしそれでは
Nacho turned pale and shook his head several times. Does the thing Beato had said forced him to face a fact that was frightening even to imagine.
俺の想像したトリックならな。しかしこんなトリックを使えば怪しまれる人物は極めて限定される。
He didn't want to say it in front of Nanjo, but after eliminating Jessica, who had been with him the whole time, only Nanjo and Eva could have done it.
私はそんなことをしませんぞ。誓ってもいい。
となるとエヴァおばさんと南條先生のアリバイ合戦ってことになる。俺たちは2人とも怪しんでそれぞれを別々に監禁すればいいだけの話。逆に言えばこのトリックはもっと生存者が多ければ有効かもしれないがこれだけ人数が減った状況下では大して有効ではないんだ。
Oh, on the contrary, there'd be a chance of having your own neck strangled by using it. It would have been more advantageous to make it look like the culprit was outside, to intentionally leave a door unlocked or break a window.
もしこの失踪劇が今日の昼にでも起これば、俺は自信満々にこの説を発表しただろうよ。だが、この段階に至っては全然自信が持てないぜ。何なんだこいつは。一体何を意味してやがるんだ、この密室はよ。
やはりその。
なんだい、南條先生。思いつきでもいいから言ってくれよ。
Nanjo looked like he was trying to swallow his words, even though he thought of something, so I urged him on. After Dr. Nanjo refused several times, saying that it was just a foolish idea, he finally said it out loud.
イエスの。やはりこれは本当に魔女の仕業ではないのかと。
バカバカしい。魔女なんているわけがねえぜ。
魔女は私たちに訴えたいのです。人間にはできないことをやってのけるからこそ、自分を魔女だと認めさせたいに違いないのです。私はこのゲストハウス全体の密室からの失踪は、そういう魔女からのメッセージだと感じています。考えてはならないのです。意味なんてきっとないのです。私は恐ろしい。
As Dr. Nanjo shook with fear, it looked like he was trying to erase the fearsome thoughts that he kept imagining one after the other. When we went downstairs, Aunt Eva and Jessica were each persistent in their desire to leave this place in search for their respective family. It was a desire that naturally hits those who can no longer see their family. Aunt Eva told Dr. Nanjo to stay here, but I shook my head and started walking.
もう引きこもりはたくさんだぜ。俺も外の空気を吸いたくなってきた。
ああ、行くならさっさと行こうぜ。もうこんなところに閉じこもってるのは真っ平さ。早く父さんや母さんやジョージ兄さんを探しに行こう。
The blood had all risen to Jessica's head. I hope it doesn't set off her asthma.
残りたい人は勝手に残ってればいいわ。とにかく私たちは表を探してくるわ。
南條先生はどうする？一人で留守番してるか？
いえ、私もご一緒させてください。
Rather than holding up alone in the guest house, whose security was by no means guaranteed, it would be better to enter a danger zone as a group of 4 people. Aunt Eva had a gun. Moving separately from her was almost like asking to be made into the next victim. In this way, the 4 of us decided to leave the guest house. Even though it should have been safe to barricade ourselves here, we lost 8 people after doing so. It was almost as though this was a holding cell from which the sacrifices could be killed one after another. We removed the chain, unlocked the front door, and opened it. It was already pitch black. While there were some lights outside that dimly lit the pathway, they didn't have enough power to pierce the darkness that some suspicious person might be hiding.
行くわよ。遅れても知らないんだからね。
Still holding her gun, Aunt Eva dashed out without an umbrella. Jessica followed after her. After glancing at each other, Dr. Nanjo and I chased after them. What in the world is happening in this mansion, in this island? I've just been shut up in the guest house with the rest of the cousins since yesterday, so I don't know anything about what's going on outside. Just what is happening that I don't know about, outside this room, in the mansion, on this island. Everything is happening, everything is proceeding, and everything is ending without my knowing it. Somewhere in my heart, I've already started giving up. Most likely, not one of us will see tomorrow morning. The seagulls cry. Nobody will be left alive. Very
さん、
nice.
誰がこんなことを。
Jessica's woeful voice echoed throughout the rose garden. Perhaps it was the intuition of a person who lived on this island. After checking the part of the rose garden where Aunt Rosa and Maria had fallen and seeing nothing, Jessica went to look in the arbor next. Normally, the arbor was probably a wonderful location to enjoy peacefully while appreciating the roses on a good sunny day. Maybe even Uncle Kraus and Aunt Natsui had days when they relaxed and enjoyed their tea together here. In that arbor lay their corpses now. Right. Jeremiah Kraus. His corpse was found in the Rose Garden arbor. The cause of his death is assumed to be strangling with a rope-like object. The egg-shaped weapon was sticking out of his thigh. If only there wasn't that stupid epitaph, I wouldn't have needed a stake. What a pain. Jeremiah Natsui. Her corpse was found in the Rose Garden arbor. The cause of her death is assumed to be strangling with a rope-like object. A egg-shaped weapon was sticking out of her thigh. Why do I even have to follow the epitaph in the first place? Is this some kind of game? Rudolph, Kyrie, Hideyoshi, Kraus, Natsui. Okay. At least they aren't drenched in the rain like Aunt Rosa and Maria had been. There was no way I could say that out loud to Jessica at the moment.
どうなんだ、南條先生。
考察ですな。ほら、ご覧なさい。首にくっきりと何か細いもので締めた跡が残っている。
だな。まさかこっちが主たる死因のわけはねえだろうよ。
Right there were two stake-like weapons decorated with occult design, which had been found driven into Uncle Kraus's thigh area, near Aunt Natsui's cat. When we found these sticking out of my parents' forehead and chest, we decided to preserve the crime scene and leave them for the police. Jessica didn't care about such matters and immediately pulled the stakes out of her parents' forsaken bodies.
これで頭、胸、腹、膝、足の5つをえぐられた死体が出たわけね。犯人め、殺してやる、殺してやる。第8の番まではこれで終わったわ。続くは第9の番なの。魔女は蘇り、誰も生き残れはしない。上等だぜ。魔女が蘇るってことは犯人が堂々と姿を現してくれるってことなんだろう。何が誰も生き残れないだ。私が殺してやる。父さんと母さんを殺した犯人をこの手で絶対に殺してやる。
Jessica let her emotions flow out as she howled furiously. To avoid being crushed by grief, she could do nothing but resist it with anger.
まだジョージが見つかってないわ。ジェシカちゃんたちはここにいたければいるといい。私は屋敷へ行くわ。
エヴァさん、バラバラに行動してはいけない。みんなで一緒に行動しなくては危険です。
兄さんたちはもうどうしようもないわ。でもジョージはまだどこかで生きているかもしれない。ここで時間を潰してる暇はないのよ。
As Aunt Eva screamed this, Jessica glared at her. Eva had no more time to bother about the dead. She was more concerned for the safety of her only son, who had yet to be seen.
ジェシカちゃんはここでお父さんとお母さんのそばにいるといい。私はちょっと屋敷に行ってくるわ。バトラ君も南條先生もここにいてくれていい。
After arbitrarily saying this, Aunt Eva rushed out of the arbor. Called out to stop her, but there was no way she would listen. However, being alone in the situation meant nothing short of death. We silently watched her leave. It would be the same as letting her die. Since Aunt Eva was unwilling to stop, we had no choice but to follow her. And, while it may be cruel to say so, Uncle Kraus and Aunt Natsui were already dead. There was nothing more we could do for them. In the end, we had no choice but to console Jessica and head for the mansion together. Fortunately, Jessica stood up. Perhaps she had been able to break free from her grief, but what had surfaced in its place was an expression like a...
私がこの手でぶっ殺して必ず敵を取ってやる。行こうぜバトラー。犯人を見つけたら邪魔をするなよ。私が絶対に殺す。
俺も 親父たちの仇があるんだ。悪いが早いもん勝ちだぜ。
そうだな。ぶっ殺してやろうぜ。
In my words, Jessica finally seemed to feel like I sympathized with her emotions. She still had that dark expression, but I felt that Jessica had regained some of her sanity. I took off, pacing after Aunt Eva, through the rose garden, up the stone steps, running at full speed towards the mansion, whose large, intimidating shadow flashed in the lighting. Like this, the murderers of the epitaph had reached the 8th twilight, and on the 9th twilight, the witch shall revive. None shall be left alive. I almost like to lose my life, but at very least, I want to burn the truth into my eyes. It's the only thing motivating me to move right now. We were able to meet up with Aunt Eva, who was having trouble with the lock to the front door. It seemed that all the blood had risen to Aunt Eva's head. I was probably making her fingers clumsy. It looked like she couldn't even handle the simple task of inserting the key into the lock. Then, there was a faint sound. The sound of the door unlocking, just as though it had waited for all of the survivors to unite before opening. It felt to me as though the malicious mansion was trying to swallow up all the remaining humans at once. Perhaps the stench that erupted outwards the instant the door opened couldn't be described as just a smell. It wasn't just the charred smell from grandfather. I think it also may have contained the regrets of the servants and dad's groups. All of the dead. What did it mean as it floated out, overwhelming? Was it the cry of the dead telling us not to enter? However, Aunt Eva didn't even flinch at something like that. We who had to chase after her were forced to step into the mansion even after receiving that message.
ジョージジョージ聞こえたら返事をしなさいジョージ
Aunt Eva shouted at the top of her lungs. Considering the situation, it's probably far too optimistic to imagine he's alive. When we started following Aunt Eva's example and calling out George's name in loud voices, Aunt Eva spotted something, stopped walking. He was standing in front of the door to the parlor.
これは南條先生ちょっと来てもらえるかしら
何事ですかな。
I'd heard about the eerie magic circles written on doors, like the one in the parlor, the adults. Eerie is the only word to describe that thing. Scribbled with a deep red paint, reminiscent of blood, that had slowly dripped down. However, that had supposedly been there since this point. Wondering why Aunt Eva, who had supposedly seen it already, would think of it. Would think it odd now. Jessica and I stared at the door.
確かにこんな数字が書かれていた記憶はありません。
ええなかったわ不気味な魔法文字みたいなのは書かれていたけど数字は書かれていなかった
From what the two of them said, only the magic circle had been there this morning. However, right now, there were 8 digits written near the upper part of the magic. Zero 715112. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't even want to imagine what someone had been thinking when they wrote it. It was drawn with the same paint as the magic circle, but it had clearly been written very recently. The way it had dried and the condition of the color was completely different from the magic circle part. Ominous.
どうせ魔法的な意味があるんだろうぜ。深く考えたって意味なんかあるわけもないさ。
Jessica intentionally spat those words out in an attempt to push aside the eerie feel it gave off.
魔法陣というものかもしれませんが、ある種の数字遊びに魔除けが宿るという考え方です。どの列を足しても同じ数字になるみたいなものを皆さんも見聞きしたことがおありでしょう。
あれは四角形の中に埋めた数字の話じゃなかった？これは横一列だもの。何の意味があるのかさっぱりだわ。多分ジェシカちゃんの言うのが正解よ。私たちが深く考えたところで意味なんか何もないわ。
Even though she said that, she probably suspected that it actually meant something. And Eva was definitely writing that number down on an old receipt or something with a short ballpoint pen. Unless it had some obvious pattern, it'd probably be tough to memorize a code made up of an 8-digit number.
これ日にちとかな。
日にち？何の話？
いや、偶然だろうけどな。7月15日なんだ。0715が7月15日を示すのかなって思ったら、1129も、ほら、11月29日って読んだら、ちょうど語呂がいいかなって思ってよ。
そして11月29日ってなんだよ。
俺が知りてえぜ。まあたまたまの偶然だろうけどな。そう考えたらなんだか不気味になっちまったぜ。11月29日が誰かの誕生日だったりとかするのか？うちの家族は違うぜ。親父も桐江さんも縁者も違う。もちろん俺のお袋もだ。
心当たりがありませんな。金蔵さんの誕生日でも源氏さんの誕生日でもないはずだ。
うちの家族も違うわよ。ローザやマリアちゃんでもないわ。
うちの家族だって違うぜ。カノン君も違うし、シャノンも違う。私、使用人の人の誕生日にはちゃんとプレゼント渡してるからみんな知ってるけど、11月29日に誕生日の人間なんて知らないぜ。
Once we started imagining that the 8 digits weren't meaningless, but actually 2 dates written together, it really started to look that way. However, its true meaning may be something completely different, or there may be no meaning at all. Anyway, since we don't have any real clues, it's probably pointless to stand around here. The inside of the parlor is much more important. This morning, behind each of the doors with a magic circle drawn on them, had been the body of a victim. So, if something new has been added to this door, that means something new has been added inside the parlor. When Aunt Eva tried to open it, she felt the resistance of the lock. She immediately took out a master key and put it in. As she opened the door, Aunt Eva let out a high-pitched scream and ran inside. That alone was enough to tell us what happened inside the room. Dr. Nanjo and I looked at each other, and I shook my head slightly as we entered the parlor.
ジョージしっかりして。ジョージ南條先生、早く。
Virgilia lay there crumpled alongside Shannon Chan's corpse. His chest was stained bright red. Judging by his still opened eyes, I hate to say it to Aunt Eva, but I couldn't pick up any signs of life. After moving to take George's, Dr. Nanjo shook his head, cautiously reporting that George was dead. His corpse was found in the mansion. However, the weapon used on him is assumed to be a gun or spear-shaped object. In exchange for his soul, the witch gave 8 numbers: 0715112. If you say it, a small golden land will be opened. Brushing him aside, Aunt Eva once again crouched beside George and Nikki and started crying at the top of her lungs. To Nikki's death, one thing is certain: murders hadn't ended on the 8th twilight. The epitaph was being carried out in its complete form, including the 9th twilight, and none shall be left alive. I was really starting to lose track of things. For some reason, Aunt Eva's half-crazed cries actually made me cool down. That's all